I'd been looking forward to Mason's birthday party all week. It wasn't just that he was my best friend, though it was more the idea of being around people, letting loose, not thinking about work or bills or my creaky apartment ceiling for one night. But of course, life had other plans. My manager dropped a last-minute deadline on me that afternoon. "Just clean up the draft," she said. Like that meant 20 minutes. 3 hours later, I was still glued to my laptop, fingers aching, posture ruined, and with each passing minute, the party started to slip further and further away. By the time I finally shut my laptop and looked at the clock, it was already past 8:30. I stared at myself in the mirror, still in my work hoodie and sweats, hair doing whatever the hell it wanted. I looked exhausted, not the kind of exhausted a shower could fix, either the kind that came from letting yourself down. Again, I grabbed my phone and sent Mason a quick text. "Sorry, man. Couldn't make it. Work trapped me." Hope it was a good one, party popper. I didn't expect an answer. He was probably still surrounded by friends, half-buzzed, laughing, maybe forgetting I was even supposed to be there in the first place. I tossed my phone onto the bed and sunk down beside it, sighing into the dark. The apartment was quiet, eerily so. The kind of quiet that wraps around you too tightly when you're already feeling small. No music, no chatter, just the low hum of the fridge and the occasional sound of traffic outside my window. I started scrolling mindlessly on my phone, eyes glazing over texts, memes, photos of people smiling. My fingers hovered over Mason's chat for a moment, tempted to send another apology. But what would that change? That's when my phone buzzed. I looked down, expecting Mason, but it wasn't him. It was a number I recognized instantly, but hadn't expected. His dad, Mr. Callahan. "Hey, Mason mentioned you couldn't make it, but if you're still up for it, I've got cake and a quiet house. You can still come by. Not too late to celebrate." I stared at the message for a long time. It was unexpected. Not that I didn't like Mr. Callahan, quite the opposite. He'd always been kind to me in that calm, effortless way that made you feel like you mattered. But we'd never really talked one-on-one. And now he was inviting me, at almost 9 p.m., to his house, alone? I laughed under my breath. "It's probably just polite," I muttered to myself. "Maybe he feels bad." Still, I could feel something fluttering in my chest. A nervous flicker. The kind of feeling I got when I was about to do something I knew might change things. I opened the message again. Read it. Reread it. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Typed it again. Me. "You sure it's not too late?" His response came fast. "Mr. Callahan. Not at all. Come on by. Back door's open." There it was again, that gentle confidence in his words. Like nothing could possibly be weird about it. I sat there for a minute, chewing the inside of my cheek. Every logical part of me was saying, just stay home, microwave something, binge a show, go to bed. But I didn't listen to that part. I got up, threw on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and stepped into the cool night air. Mr. Callahan's place looked almost surreal at night. The porch lights were off, but I could see the soft amber glow of the living room bleeding out through the sheer curtains. There was no noise, no sign of a party. No red Solo cups on the lawn, no loud music, no leftover chaos. Just a calm quietness, like the house had already exhaled and gone to bed. I walked around the side, finding the back gate already slightly open. As promised, the back door was unlocked. I pushed it gently. "Hey!" came a smooth, low voice from inside. "That you?" I stepped in, brushing my shoes on the mat. "Yeah. Hope I'm not intruding." Mr. Callahan leaned against the kitchen counter with a glass in his hand. He looked like something out of a quiet movie scene. Black shirt rolled up at the sleeves, a hint of stubble, hair just a little tousled. The lighting in the room was dim, golden, like candlelight without the candles. Somewhere in the living room, a record was spinning. A mellow, old-school jazz tune I couldn't name, but somehow felt familiar. "You're late," he said, raising an eyebrow with a half-smile. "Fashionably late?" I shot back, already feeling a smile tug at the corner of my lips. He nodded toward the liquor shelf. "Beer? Or something stronger?" Beer's good. He handed me a cold bottle without asking what kind. I appreciated the ease of it. No small talk about brands or preferences. Just here. Sit down. Let the night be. The kitchen still smelled faintly of birthday cake and pizza, like the party had only just left, not vanished entirely. I glanced toward the living room and saw some streamers hanging from the ceiling fan. But all the people, the noise, the movement were gone. Everyone gone home? I asked, taking a sip. He leaned on the counter again, this time facing me. Yep. Mason and his friends cleared out an hour ago. You just missed the chaos. I bet, I said, chuckling softly. We stood there for a second, drinking. The jazz playing in the background filled the silence, making it comfortable. I caught myself watching the way the record spun slowly, the needle bouncing gently in place. I'd only ever seen digital playlists. Something about the analogness of it all felt grounding. Glad you came, though, Mr. Callahan said suddenly. I looked up. Yeah. He shrugged, but there was something in his eyes. I mean, I didn't want you to feel left out. I know Mason probably didn't check his phone, but I figured maybe you still needed a place to land. Place to land. The way he said it, like he knew something about me I hadn't said out loud, made my stomach flutter in the weirdest way. I took another sip of beer to hide it. I was honestly just going to stay home, I admitted, but your message kind of pulled me out. I'm glad it did. Another beat passed. Then he clapped his hands lightly. Come on. Let's not stand in the kitchen like awkward co-workers. There's something better out back. I followed him through the sliding door, stepping into the cool night. The backyard was strung with fairy lights. Not the bright white kind, but the soft golden bulbs that gave off more glow than glare. They looped along the wooden fence and up the pergola, casting everything in this warm haze. 2 chairs were set up on the back porch. He motioned to one. Sit. Relax. No work. No parties. Just the after hours. I sat. The cushion was worn but comfortable, and from here I could see the stars peeking through the clouds above. The music from inside filtered through the open door, just enough to keep us company. So, he said, settling into his chair beside me. How's life been treating you? I laughed. That's a loaded question. Good. I like loaded questions. I paused. Honestly, it's been weird lately. Work's a mess. I feel like everyone my age is either getting engaged or moving to new cities. And I'm just trying to keep my fridge from being empty. He chuckled. You're not alone there. But it's more than that. I went on, surprised at myself for opening up. I don't know. Lately I feel like I'm always in the room, but never really in it, you know? Like I'm there, but not seen. He didn't reply right away, just looked out at the yard, then back at me. His voice dropped a little when he said, That's one of the loneliest kinds of feelings. I swallowed. Yeah. The breeze picked up, rustling the leaves gently. Somewhere in the neighbor's yard, a wind chime clinked faintly. It was quiet enough that I could hear my own breath, hear the subtle clink of his ring against the beer bottle in his hand. I know it's probably strange, I said. Me being here like this, with you. Strange's not always bad, he said. Sometimes it's the start of something real. I turned to look at him. His eyes met mine, steady and calm, not searching for anything, just offering a kind of quiet understanding I hadn't realized I craved. You always talk like that? I asked, half joking. Only when the night feels like it's listening. I smiled, and this time it didn't feel forced. We sat there in silence for a while, just sipping our drinks and listening to the faint music, the breeze, the sound of nothing urgent. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to fill the silence. For once, I didn't feel invisible. We'd been sitting under the fairy lights for what felt like an hour, saying less and feeling more. The beer was half finished in my hand, slightly warm now, but I didn't care. Something about the air between us felt suspended, like we were balancing on a wire stretched between 2 ordinary lives, quietly pretending we weren't. Mr. Callahan stood up suddenly and stretched. Be right back, he said, and disappeared inside. There it was, the thing I hadn't even told Mason. The thing I barely even told myself. I stared down at the plate again, blinking fast. Then I felt it. His hand brushed mine. Not a full touch, just fingers grazing over knuckles. A quiet "I'm here" without saying it. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. And for a long moment we just sat there like that. Our hands barely touching, the night holding its breath around us. "I felt that too," he said at last, voice low and warm. "Especially after the divorce. When Mason was off at college, and the house felt so hollow." He paused. I looked over. His eyes were on the candle now, too. "First birthday I spent alone. I bought myself a slice of cake from the grocery store. Ate it over the sink with a plastic fork." He chuckled, but it was the kind of laugh that held weight. "That sounds painfully relatable," I murmured. He turned toward me slightly. "You're not alone in how you feel. Most people are just better at hiding it." His words weren't meant to comfort. Not in the sugary surface way. They were just true. And that truth settled deep in my chest like warmth finally reaching a cold spot I hadn't realized was there. "I used to think there was something wrong with me," I said. "Like I missed a class on how to be around people." "There's nothing wrong with you," he said, and his voice was firmer now. Certain. Our eyes met. No pretense. No walls. I wanted to say something. Anything. But all that came out was a quiet breath. He leaned forward slightly, elbow on his knee, watching me. "You're thoughtful. You listen when most people talk just to fill space. And you showed up tonight. That means something." I felt myself go still again, not frozen, just seen. That rare feeling when someone's looking right at you and you don't want to look away. "Thank you," I said, the words small but real. He smiled softly. "I'm glad you're here." It wasn't flirty. It wasn't said with any kind of angle. It just was sincere and full and present. And in that moment, something shifted. Not between us exactly, but inside me. Like I wasn't just passing through the night anymore. Like I belonged to it. The candle flickered once in the breeze and went out on its own. Neither of us moved to relight it. The candle had long since burned out, and so had most of the conversation. But we stayed out there anyway, two shadows under fairy lights, listening to the night hum. Eventually, Mr. Callahan stood and stretched, rolling his neck. "Want some water? Or something sweet? There's still cake inside." "Sure," I said, even though I wasn't hungry. It was just easier than saying no and breaking the rhythm between us. I followed him back into the house. The music had changed, the record had run out, and now some soft instrumental playlist played from a speaker in the corner. The kitchen was dim again, lit only by the warm under-cabinet lights and the glow from the open fridge as he reached in for something. I hovered near the counter, unsure of what to do with my hands. "You ever have nights that don't feel like real life?" I asked, trying to shake the heaviness in my chest. He looked over his shoulder. "Yeah," he said. "They're rare. But I've had them. This feels like one." He stood slowly, holding two plates. "That a good thing or a bad thing?" "I don't know yet." He smiled gently, walked over, and placed the plates on the counter. "Well, if it's bad, I'll blame the cheap cake." We both reached for one of the forks resting beside the plates. At the same time, fingers touched. His hand was warm. I pulled mine back automatically, flustered, but not before I saw it in his eyes, the flicker of something deeper than friendliness. Something held back, barely. Our eyes locked. His didn't move away this time. Neither did mine. And just like that, the air between us thickened. He didn't speak for a second. Then, quietly, calmly, like asking a question he already knew the answer to, he said, "You feel it too, right?" My heart skipped. There was no misunderstanding what he meant. His voice had dropped just slightly, like we'd stepped into some unspoken territory neither of us had fully admitted to being in. I swallowed. The weight of his gaze was heavy in the silence. I took a shaky breath. "This is weird. You're my friend's dad." "I know," he said softly, not looking away. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." "It's not that," I said too quickly. "I mean, maybe it is. I don't know." He straightened up a little, the warmth in his eyes retreating slightly. Not gone, but reined in. "Hey," he said gently. "It's okay." He stepped back, giving me space. But as he moved past me to grab a glass from the cupboard, his fingers brushed the inside of my forearm. Slow, subtle, like punctuation at the end of a sentence. It sent a jolt through me. I stood frozen by the counter, staring at the plate like it might explain what was happening. What was happening? Because this didn't feel like a passing moment anymore. It didn't feel like confusion. It felt like two people standing on the edge of something they couldn't name. Something that probably shouldn't be there, but undeniably was. Couldn't breathe. "I should go," I said, the words tumbling out faster than I meant. He turned, surprised. "You don't have to." "No, I know. I think I need to." He watched me for a second, then nodded. "Okay." I moved toward the door, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. The music, the hum of the fridge, even his quiet footsteps behind me. He didn't follow me out, just stood in the kitchen, leaning against the counter as I slipped on my shoes by the door. "Thanks for the cake," I mumbled, not turning around. "Thanks for coming," he said. I stepped out into the cool night air. The door clicked shut behind me. The walk home was a blur. My thoughts were racing, crashing into each other so fast I couldn't catch a single one. What had just happened? What had I felt? What did he feel? And why did a part of me, a part one couldn't ignore, not want to pull away? I didn't know where the lines were anymore. I didn't know if I had crossed one, or just stared at it too long. All I knew was that something had changed, and I couldn't pretend I hadn't felt it. I tried to forget. I really did. I buried myself in work, answered emails with too much enthusiasm, reorganized my closet, went for long walks with headphones blasting music I wasn't even listening to. Anything to keep my mind from circling back to that night. But it didn't work. I replayed it over and over, like a memory on loop that had burned itself into the folds of my brain. The warm flicker of the candlelight, the clink of our bottles on the porch table, the way he looked at me, not with confusion but clarity, and the way I didn't look away. His words came back the most. "You feel it too, right?" Even now, just thinking about it made my stomach flip. But it wasn't just the tension or the touch or the almost kiss. It was how seen I'd felt. Like he'd pulled back all the noise and looked right at me, without judgment or expectation. And that terrified me more than anything, because I didn't know what to do with that kind of truth. So I stayed silent. I didn't reach out. I didn't text Mason either, which was unusual. He probably assumed I was just busy. And for once, I let him believe that. 3 days later, I was walking through the local grocery store, half asleep and hunting for cereal. I turned the corner into the breakfast aisle, and there he was, Mr. Callahan. He was crouched near the bottom shelf, comparing 2 different boxes of granola like the fate of the world depended on it. He hadn't seen me yet. I could have turned around, could have disappeared behind the canned soup and pretended I hadn't noticed. But my feet stayed rooted. He looked up. For a second, he froze too. Then he smiled, hesitant, soft. "Hey!" Cleared my throat. "Hey! Didn't expect to run into you here," he said, standing up, granola forgotten. "Yeah, I'm a sucker for cinnamon oats," I joked weakly, holding up the box in my hand like a peace offering. He chuckled, and it broke something in the tension. Just enough. We stood there awkwardly close, like we weren't sure which version of each other we were supposed to be. The ones from Mason's backyard, or the ones from the space between now and then. "I've been meaning to," he started, then sighed. "Look, about the other night. I shouldn't have said anything." His voice was low, sincere. Not regretful exactly, but cautious. "I wasn't trying to cross a line," he continued. "I just felt something in the moment, and I let it show. That's on me." I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't brushing it off. He wasn't pretending it hadn't happened. He was owning it, gently, quietly, and for the first time in days, the storm in my chest started to still. "You didn't mess anything up?" I said, surprising even myself with how steady my voice came out. "I just got scared." His eyes lifted to mine. I felt my heart stutter. He didn't move, didn't speak. So I went on. It wasn't weird because of you. It was weird because I felt it too. And I didn't know what to do with that. Something shifted in his expression. Not a full smile, but something softer, more hopeful. Like he was letting himself breathe again. I thought maybe I imagined it, he said. You didn't. A silence settled between us. But it wasn't heavy this time. It was honest. I'm not trying to make things complicated, he said after a moment. Especially not for you. They're already complicated, I said. But maybe that's not a bad thing. We both stood there, in the middle of the cereal aisle, surrounded by fluorescent lights and quiet beeping from the checkout lanes. And it felt more real than anything I'd done all week. Finally, he gestured toward my basket. You forgot milk. I looked down. Damn. Right. I'll walk with you, he said casually. Make sure you don't get lost on the way to the dairy section. I smiled, not even trying to hide it this time. That'd be nice. As we walked, our arms brushed once. Neither of us flinched. And for the first time in days, I wasn't trying to forget. I was starting to remember why I didn't want to. 3 days after that run-in at the grocery store, he texted me again. Mr. Callahan, no cake this time. Just dinner. You free Friday? There was no pretense in the message. No vague excuse like before. No party to miss, no leftovers to share. Just dinner. With him. Because we both knew what we'd been circling around. And I didn't hesitate. I'll be there. It was already dark when I pulled up to his house. The porch light was on this time, warm and steady. No voices from inside. No signs of a gathering. Just the quiet promise of something real. He opened the door before I could knock. You're early, he said with a soft smile. I didn't want to be late again. Come in. Inside. The place looked familiar but quieter, softer. The overheads were off. Just a few small lamps glowed in the corners of the living room and kitchen. Something was simmering on the stove, and the faint sound of music drifted in from a speaker. Not jazz this time, something slower, acoustic, like the night itself had been tuned to a more intimate frequency. He led me to the kitchen where 2 plates were already set at the small table by the window. A bottle of wine rested in the center, already uncorked. I cooked, he said, lifting the lids from the pans. I leaned over the table, pretending to inspect. Is this real food? Not leftover cake. He gave me a playful look. Don't insult my culinary skills. It's roasted chicken, garlic green beans, and something that resembles risotto if you squint. You're really going all out. It's not every day I get to cook for someone who actually shows up. That line landed gently. No accusation, no pressure, just acknowledgement. I nodded and sat down. Dinner was easy. Surprisingly so. We really talked about our weeks, our weird coworkers, the strange ways time moved differently when you were lonely. He told me a story about Mason as a kid, about how he once tried to cook breakfast for Father's Day and almost set the stove on fire. I laughed harder than I had in weeks. We shared the wine. Not too much, just enough to loosen the tension in our shoulders. And every now and then, our eyes would linger a little too long. Not with fear this time, but with quiet recognition. After the plates were cleared and the music played on, I stood up and moved toward the living room. The record player from the party was gone, replaced by the soft hum of his playlist, barely louder than the sound of the house settling around us. He followed me, glass in hand. I know this sounds ridiculous, I said, looking down at my shoes, but I've never really danced with anyone before. He raised an eyebrow. You're kidding. Nope. Not unless you count middle school gym class where we had to awkwardly sway to Celine Dion's 6 Feet Apart. He chuckled, then set his glass down on the coffee table. Then come here. I blinked. What? Let me be the first. He held out his hand, and I took it. He pulled me in slowly, one hand around my waist, the other holding mine. We stood in the middle of his living room as the music changed to something slow and stripped down. A man's voice? Raw and emotional, singing about being found. At first, I was stiff, unsure where to put my feet, unsure how to exist so close to him without shattering. But he didn't rush me. His hand on my back was steady. his breath warm near my temple. And soon enough we began to move. It wasn't much, a slow sway, barely more than a shifting of weight. But it felt like everything. The kind of silence that speaks louder than words. The kind of closeness you don't fake. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. "I keep thinking," he murmured. "We could keep pretending we don't want this." I swallowed. "Or," he added, voice low, "we could stop pretending." He didn't lean in all at once. He waited, just inches away, eyes flicking to my mouth, then back up to meet my gaze again, asking without words. And I answered the only way I knew how. I closed the distance. Our lips touched softly, slowly, the kind of kiss that doesn't demand, but discovers. He tasted like wine and warmth, like the quiet safety I hadn't realized I was searching for. His hands slid to the back of my neck, fingers threading gently through my hair. It wasn't hurried. There was no urgency, just a slow unraveling of something we'd both been holding back. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us spoke. He took my hand and led me down the hall. His bedroom was simple, neat, comfortable, familiar. He sat on the edge of the bed, and I stood in front of him, heart racing. He looked up at me like I was something fragile, not breakable, just important. "I want this to be okay," he said quietly. "For you." "It is," I said, more certain than I'd been about anything in a long time. "It's more than okay." He stood and kissed me again. Slower this time, deeper, and we began to undress, but not like in the movies, not in a flurry of desire. It was deliberate, gentle, like opening a gift you didn't expect to receive. He guided me to the bed, and we laid down, our bodies moving together in ways that felt natural, but not rushed. We talked in between kisses, whispered little truths. He asked if I was all right, often, and I always answered yes because I'd never felt more understood, more seen. The way he touched me wasn't about control or performance. It was about connection. And when we finally collapsed into the sheets, breathless and warm, he wrapped his arms around me like he never wanted to let go. I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. "I didn't expect any of this," I whispered. "Neither did I," he replied. "But I'm not letting it go." We didn't talk much after that, just held each other, letting the night wrap around us like a secret. And in that quiet, I knew this wasn't just about one night. This was the beginning of something I hadn't even let myself dream about, something worth staying for. I woke up to the smell of coffee. Soft sunlight spilled across the bed, filtered through half-closed blinds. The sheets were still warm around me, and for a few quiet seconds, I didn't move. I just lay there, eyes half-closed, breathing in the kind of peace I'd never thought I'd find in someone else's home. No, not someone else's anymore. His, and maybe, in time, ours. I sat up slowly, rubbing the back of my neck, still dizzy from everything we'd shared the night before. Not in a bad way, in a grounding, life-altering kind of way. Like the floor of my world had shifted slightly, and I was finally starting to stand on solid ground. I pulled on the t-shirt he'd left folded at the foot of the bed, one of those worn-in, impossibly soft ones, and followed the smell into the kitchen. He was standing at the stove, barefoot, hair messy, flipping something in a pan. There were 2 mugs on the counter, one already filled, one waiting. "You're up," he said without turning. "Wasn't sure if I wore you out or just bored you to sleep." I snorted. "A little of both." He laughed, low and easy, and handed me the mug. "French roast," he said. "No sugar, little cream, right?" I blinked. "You remembered?" "Of course." I took a sip and sat at the little kitchen table, watching him move. He looked comfortable, like this morning wasn't strange or awkward, like he wanted me here. No tension, no rushing, just the sound of eggs sizzling and coffee cooling and a kind of domestic stillness I didn't know I craved until now. He brought over 2 plates and set them down, sitting across from me. "You didn't have to cook?" I said, smiling. He looked at me for a long moment. "I wanted to." We ate in quiet for a while, but not the heavy kind. It was the kind of silence where everything had already been said, and now we were just letting the moment breathe. After a few minutes, I set my fork down. "I've never felt this safe before," I said, almost a whisper. He looked up. "Not just with what we did. I mean this, waking up here, drinking coffee with you, being seen without having to explain everything." His gaze softened. "That's all I've ever wanted to give someone." He reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. Warm, solid. "I know this is complicated," he said, "but I don't want this to be something that burns out after one night." "It's not," I said quickly. "I don't want that either. I want to take things slow," he continued. "Right? Real. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I just want to build something we can be proud of." I let out a slow breath, feeling something in my chest loosen, like I'd been waiting for permission to believe in this, and he'd just given it. "Then let's build it," I said. He smiled, wide this time, real. The kind of smile that tells you everything is going to be okay. After breakfast, we didn't rush to get dressed. We cleaned up the plates together, our elbows brushing, laughing over a piece of egg that had somehow landed on the floor. He kissed my forehead as we wiped down the counter. I kissed his neck just because I could. And as I stood there, bare feet on his cool kitchen tile, I realized something. I hadn't missed the party. I'd missed what came after. I missed the fake smiles, the noise, the small talk. But by doing that, by not showing up that night, I'd walked straight into something I never knew I needed. I found someone who wasn't interested in pretending. Someone who listened when I talked, who looked at me like I mattered. Someone who offered me a slice of cake with a lit candle when I felt like an afterthought to everyone else. I missed a party, but I found something better. Someone better. Someone who didn't just want to celebrate me for a night, but every day after. I love knowing where these stories reach. If this one touched you, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments. Let's see how far this love story traveled.